And I want to show you what the decision-making process goes through as we're looking at and evaluating images. How do we decide what to do? How much editing is enough? How much is not enough? And what's that process look like? So I think it's way easier to actually see some of this stuff happening. Looking at this, it's nothing special. Looking at this image, it's very much looks like a snapshot, right? We've got kind of an overexposed area in this background here. Totally shot, nothing super interesting. The zebra's not doing much when it comes to it. It's got some cool lines, and zebras are just really, really fun looking in general. So kind of fun just the fact that it is a zebra, and it's exciting because I don't get to see them every day. But it's nothing that I'd necessarily like want to put up on my wall or enter into competitions or anything. But I want to show you how we can look at this stuff and actually find the image within the image now that we've gone and taken it. So this was something I didn't have necessarily a purpose for it besides think it was kind of cool, and it was something that my wife and I could do when we were visiting the zoo in Phoenix. So first thing I want to do is start looking at the crop. Where's the image within this image, and what is holding it back? What's distracting it? And what's kind of taking away the main impact? So I'm just going to pull up this crop tool here in Photoshop. So I just hit the crop button, and kind of a little bit of a tip. If you do see a crop and you're like, oh no, it's applied, that's up here. On this top toolbar, we can come up here and we can just switch it back to like original ratio. And if you have numbers or a particular ratio already put up, that clear button will get rid of it all. So I find this very helpful just to start with a clear slate, not necessarily trying to play into specific 8:10 or 11:14 or 2:3 ratios. Let the image speak. Tell me what it needs. We can print it any size. Custom printing, it's totally there. So we've got some flexibility. Don't feel limited by just that one perspective. So that single crop. So when I'm looking at it, this top part, definitely not doing anything for this image. I might be able to recover it a little bit because I shot in RAW, but even if it was there, it's not really going to help me. So let's start cropping it, taking it out. It's like, okay, I'm just going to take down that first part. It's not so bright. It's out of our way. So we can see it's kind of shadowed up. Still not a whole lot here. There's not really a good way to salvage that hairline that's on there. So I'm going to get a little bit more aggressive in this crop and come way, way down in here. Say, okay, let's get rid of some of that stuff. This bottom part, not helping us either. But I do have something kind of visually interesting here with the face of the zebra and all these stripes. So we've got some nice design elements with repetition that's coming through. So I do want to play into that element and maybe draw some more focus to it. So I'm going to crop up. So we have almost like a really, really extreme panorama that's coming through. It's getting a little bit more interesting. We've cut out most of the background that has stuff that's kind of boring. I'm going to take in this extra edge. We don't need that much butt room. Let's bring it in. A little bit of tail's kind of awkward there. Let's keep going. Let's bring it into the leg. Coming up here, I've got a little bit of a gap there. Kind of pulls your attention away from it. Let's keep coming in. These are decisions that I'm making every time. I'm just saying, okay, let's start cropping out stuff that's not helping the image, stuff that's not going to be as effective. I'm going to come in just a little bit. Now we're into that main element there. Let's come up the other way. On that other side, coming in. And now I've got something that's starting to look a little bit interesting. It's almost like there's maybe two zebras that are there. Instead of the single one looking in, we've got some really nice line play that's coming up. But the belly's a little bit distracting for me. So I'm just going to rotate this crop ever so gently so I can maybe get rid of a little bit of that belly line right there. Maybe bring it in so that I have a little bit coming in. And we'll bring it in so that the leg's not distracting either. So I've got a really tight and aggressive crop, but I'm going to go ahead and hit OK on this crop. And we could do that. Let me actually turn on my keyboard. And now we've got something that looks a lot more visually interesting, right? From where we started with, I'm going to come back in our history real quick. From we started out here into something that's really, really aggressive crop. It's like, okay, we got some cool design elements. We just cropped out everything that was distracting in this particular image. So right off the bat, pretty cool. So now I'm looking at how do I keep the focus where I want it to be. We've got all these cool vertical lines, and we've got some horizontal lines and some sweeping curves and stuff. Everything's competing. We don't know where to look. There's just so much stuff going on. So when we're doing the retouching, we want to start saying, okay, how do I keep the focus in where I want it? And if I'm looking at the image, I'm going to come up here and just put on a red brush just so we can see. So I know that the eye is going to be a pretty cool area. That's probably where I want to have all that focus coming into this image. I want to be locked in as much as possible coming up there. So when I'm doing whatever retouching that I'm going to do, I want to kind of say, this is my main area. I want to make sure I've got a clear divide there so that doesn't get lost. And I like the shape that's happening here. So these are some main elements that I want to kind of look at. I'm going to go ahead and delete this layer now that we kind of have an idea of what we're going to do. And let's look at how this crop is coming one more time. So I'm just going to bring this up and say, you know what, maybe the eye being center isn't exactly what I want to do. Let's see if we can get that towards that third mark. Just be a little bit more. Yep. And I'll bring this one down just a hair to help kind of keep that eye on that 1/3 level. So this crop helps it just a little bit more. So we're just getting that eye in kind of a power position. So just a minor tweak to help give us something that we can lock in on. We know the rule of thirds. It's a kind of a gold standard starting point, not necessarily the be-all end-all of everything, but a really good starting point for saying, hey, this is somewhere that we kind of naturally look. So now I'm looking at it, and I've got some really, really bright areas over here. I've got some really high contrast areas on this side. I need to start directing how we're going to be looking at this image. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this layer. And that's just Control J that'll duplicate that. And actually, I'm going to crop that one before I do it, just so that I'm not playing with the full image. Okay, so I've got my duplicate layer that's up here. We can see in that layers palette. And I'm going to open up Camera Raw, just so we can play around. What I love about Camera Raw as we're doing some of these changes or evaluation things is that we can start playing with multiple adjustment layers at the same time. That means that if I want to stack color and contrast or tonal things, I can do that all in one screen, all in one image. I don't have to apply them one at a time. I find that to be really, really helpful. So when I'm looking at it, I'm seeing that we've got a lot of really bright colors. And if I see this histogram up here, I'm hitting my whites pretty close. My blacks are getting pretty close. I'm not at the full extreme on those ones, but it's a lot going on. So let's see if we can kind of reduce some of that contrast. And I'm going to come down here to lighting, and let's see if we can just flatten this out just a little bit. I'll take maybe this contrast. Notice how we're pushing these towards the middle. And you know what? Those highlights, let's bring them way down. I'm not afraid to go heavy on this one. I'm just experimenting and looking, seeing what the image needs or what it can tell me to do. Let's maybe lift up some of those shadows. We're just getting a very, very low contrast image at this point. We'll pull down a little bit of those whites and bump up a little bit of those blacks. So I've got a pretty flat image that's coming here. This is going to be a really, really nice starting point. I'm going to darken that just a little bit and go ahead and hit OK. So if I see the before and after on this now, I went from a really, really high contrast, bright, vibrant, my eye doesn't know where to go, something that's a little bit more muted. So now we can start controlling where our eye is going to go via a mask. So I'm just going to put on a mask here and bring up a nice soft brush. So I'm going to go hardness down here, and let's make it really big. Okay, and I can just paint in with black, because black is going to reveal the layer underneath. So everything I paint in black is going to be this high contrast. And say, I want the attention, the focus coming up here to this face. So I'm just going to kind of paint that in just a little bit. And look at that. Now I've got a lot of attention coming up to this face area, right? And not so much on the rest of the body. So we just lower the contrast on the body, pop the contrast a little bit when it's coming to the face that's there. But I'm seeing this jaw is pretty bright. Maybe that's a little bit too bright. So I'm going to go ahead and paint some of that back in with white, just so we don't take that attention away from the face, and a little bit down by the nose so it doesn't pull out. So in this case, now the eye is really, really high contrast that's coming through, and everything else is pretty muted. Now, this is maybe a little bit heavy-handed, so something I like to do is kind of balance it off by reducing the opacity, coming down so it's just like maybe 60-70%. So it's almost there, but not quite as strong or in your face. I was like, okay, a little bit more focus coming on this eye. We got great attention now, and our tonal contrast, this is the area of highest contrast, is right around that eye. Everything else gets a little bit more muted. So your eye's naturally drawn to that area, and then it can explore those design elements. We can pop it just a little bit more. That eye's looking a little bit flat. So I'm going to create a new adjustment layer, and I'm going to do curves because I love curves. And with kind of a cool trick with curves, you don't even have to move the curves up and down to make them brighter or darker. We can just come back to that neutral position. So I'll start over on this one. So we're seeing just nothing coming up here. I'm just going to come curves. And now we can just change the blending mode on a curve. And what's kind of cool is it's like duplicating your layer, but we're just applying that same layer to itself. So I'm going to come down to screen, which is going to lighten stuff up. So just toggling that on and off, it's kind of like we were just duplicated that layer and we put it onto screen mode, only we just have it with an adjustment layer. Kind of cool. But look at what it's doing to that eye. Everything else is really bright, but that eye is kind of popping all sorts of pretty. So I'm going to go ahead and invert this mask so that it is not applying. I'm going to hit Control or Command I to do that. So we're back to our original image, like this is turned off entirely. And I'm just going to use a white paintbrush this time because I want to turn that on and just paint that eye. Just get a little bit of a pop that's coming to it. And now that eye's really grabbing us. We got a little bit of color. Everything else is pretty desaturated. We've got a little bit of brightness. Everything else is pretty dark. And then just to make it so it's not overdone, I'm just going to back that up just a little bit. So somewhere 50-60%. So it's just a subtle nod in terms of what we're doing. So kind of the point on here is that we're going through and just making tiny decisions all along the way. We cropped it because the elements that were around it, the environment that it was in, was distracting. We cropped it down quite aggressively until we found that story within the story, which is what we were looking for. We found a way to make the design elements of the zebra really, really pop. This is something that I'd love to enter into competition. It's got a cool aspect, a cool feeling to it, kind of feels fine art. It'd be a really, really neat art piece that could go and hang up really big. So we could do some fun stuff with it now. I probably would not showcase, look at all the stuff that we just did, gonna come back and forth, would probably not showcase this artwork anywhere. But when we did that aggressive crop and had fun with everything else, we could go ahead and play. So quite the change in between those two looks. So that is what I'm talking about when I'm saying let's look at the decisions that we're making and try to figure out why we're doing them. What could we have changed either during our capture, or can we change when we're doing our retouching? And how does that affect the image? So as we're thinking about stuff, we want to be thinking about those decisions that we're making, because the better the decisions you're going to make, the better your photographs are going to be.